Yeah. You ready? Hey. Let's go. Back. Yo, once again I'm back around. Real shit back in style. Haters reconcile. I'm so black and proud. First class tickets now. Feet all in the eye. Everybody looking down. Everybody get red when you drown, huh? Look at me up. I'm putting it down. You picking it up. Checking the models. They want us to go to college just so we can be stuck. Go to school to make a living, or teach yourself to make a fortune. Common sense. Welcome to the apocalypse. I'm one of the horsemen. I don't need your endorsement. I don't need reinforcement. Giving you your last warning, cause I'm at my prime. Yeah. I'm at my prime. Whoa. Have I gone too far? Do you detect something different? If you look inside my head, would you say something's missing? If you could give all your riches just to say the word, would you risk it? These politicians so old, can't tell if they're dead or they living. Better ask Kathy Griffin. You know I like to raise stakes. We was always taught to hit the gas, we ain't even know they made brakes. We control our own fate, watching dreams take shape. Try to keep us out, we gon' freak out, turn this water cake. I don't need your mandate, don't need you to elevate. I'm about to detonate, cause I'm at my prime. Yeah. I'm at my prime. Said I'm at my prime. We at our prime. Hey, hey, we at our prime. Yeah. I'm at my prime.
Welcome to September in Michigan, guys. Basketball season is coming to an end.
Whoa.
What's up, guys? It's Tony from Streetball Strategies, where we use strategy to build your streetball legacy. Today we're talking about how to transition from summer to fall. So when we're talking about the basketball season ending and going into the off season, say for instance if you were to live in a place like Michigan where we have all 4 seasons, and for like at least 5, 6, 7 months maybe, coming out here and playing is not really an option. It's just not warm enough, or it's just not dry enough, and so there's this huge off season in between fall and spring when you can be on the court. The question is, what do you do with that time? So number 1, fall is an evaluation period. It's time to evaluate where your game is at, where your legacy is at, in relation to where you started back in the spring. So are you at a point now that is satisfying to you in terms of the quality of your legacy in relation to where it was beginning at spring? So we're talking about strengths and weaknesses, pros and cons. How do you feel about where your game is at? And you want to be a tough but fair judge when it comes to your evaluation. It's always better to be your worst critic than to be easy on yourself. For example, my own evaluation, well, let's start off by saying that, first of all, this past season was summer of 2020, so let's take that into consideration. So it was a weird time, exceptional time, but even taking that into consideration, for me personally, I mean, it was just the fact of me getting out on the court for the first time in 10 years. Now, I didn't get to compete. There was no competition because of it being summer of 2020 and COVID and all of that. But I was still out here. I still put in some work and got an idea of where my game is at. So for my own personal evaluation, I just kind of look at it as, I mean, it's kind of hard to judge, right? Especially because I didn't compete, right? I didn't have any competition. that makes it much harder to sort of evaluate where I'm at and where I want to be. Without competing against people, it's pretty impossible to make a distinct kind of judgment and evaluation. But I can say that because it was my first time in 10 years, I didn't have very high expectations for myself, and that being the case, it's I mean, it could have been worse, it could have been much worse, but it pretty much went the way I expected. I don't have personally any tweaks in terms of skill-based things that I want or need to work on. I'm not at that point in my legacy, like building my skills. For the most part, the bulk of that is behind me. So I'm not going to be focusing on a lot of skill-based things. At least it won't be at the core of what I'm going to be working on. For me, it's more about the physicality of where I'm at. So my agility is not anywhere near where I'd like it to be. That's something that I have to work on and get better at, especially moving laterally. I just don't feel comfortable doing that. And my reactions are not where I'd like them to be either, in terms of something happens and then me reacting to it. My mind reacts to it fairly well, but my body at almost 40 years old does not do what I want or intend it to do. So I have to work on that. I have to work on my agility. And that's not my full evaluation of where I have been or where I've gone through this summer, but it's a starting point to give you an example of what I'm talking about. Number 2, this is a planning period. I always look at October as kind of a gray month, a gray area in Michigan, because in September it's still very warm. It's still warm enough to be out on the court every day. In November, it's too cold to be out here. It's unbearable. It's in the 40s for a high, and that's, for me at least, that's just not gonna cut it. And nobody else is out here either. At least I rarely ever see anybody out here in November. But in October, which it is right now, during the day it's high, it's in the 60s. In the morning it's about 40, so it's weird, but it's doable for being able to spend time out here. But because you're running out of heat, because you're running out of good weather, it's time to start planning what you want to work on once November gets here and you're not able to be out here anymore. So what is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to accomplish going into next spring? Where do you want to be at? Where you want your game to be at? Start planning for that. Now take the cons and take the weaknesses from your evaluation period and figure out how you're going to improve upon them come next spring. For me personally, going back to the physicality and the movement and the agility, come next spring, when I come back out here, I don't want to feel heavy on my feet. I don't want to have to spend a month or 6 weeks trying to work that off and get my legs back underneath me. I want to come out here and feel light and spry moving on the court. Now for me, that means watching my weight in the off season, that is winter, because I always use winter as a period to try to put on muscle and build my strength. But for me, that also means I have to put on a lot of weight in that 4 or 5 month period in order to try to build that muscle and build that strength. But also with that comes getting heavy on my feet because of the weight I've put on. I don't want to get too carried away, because once I come back out here, I don't want to be heavy on my feet. I don't want to have to put in so much time and effort into cardio and severely restricting my diet in order to get back into shape so that I don't feel heavy on my feet. I want to have as much agility as soon as possible when I get out here. And so that's my goal for the springtime, and I have to figure out now how I'm going to go about doing that. What kind of training I'm going to put into this winter in order to come back out here in the spring and be agile. If I were trying to improve on something from a skill-based approach, if I were trying to say better my dribble or become a better passer, have better, more accurate passing, then that would be a more focused area of skill that I'd be trying to study in the winter, in that off-season period. And I'd have to figure out how to go about doing that in a time where I'm not going to be on the court because it's the off-season. You know, I could make my way to an indoor court every now and then during the winter, but I can't count on that. And so I'd have to figure out a way to work on a skill like that in the winter, in the off-season, while not being able to be on the court. And I would have to plan for that and figure out how to do that accordingly, and then just, you know, you can only do what you can do, and I would do it to the best of my ability. Thirdly, and most importantly, is enjoy your last few weeks out here. The season isn't over yet, even if nobody is out here anymore because they've decided that, you know, it's too casual for them. You know, being out here when it's 55 degrees is, ooh, it's too cold for them. It's too chilly, it's too windy, they can't handle it. Just because nobody else is out here doesn't mean the season is over, right? As long as you're able to come out here, as long as it's not too cold and you're not going to freeze and make yourself sick by being out here, get out here, enjoy your time out here. It will be nice weather for the next few weeks, so get out here. Your work is not done for the season. Your body of work for 2020 is not done yet. Even if you're out here by yourself, even if there is no competition, your 2020 legacy building time is not over quite yet. Try to squeeze the last little bit of time you have left out here on the court. Try to get that out as much as possible, because once you're done for the season, you're done, and it's a long period of time between now and say March or April, and you want to try to make the most out of that time that you can. So get out here, spend the time, put in the work, be evaluating yourself, keep that in mind, and make sure you're not hiding inside the last few weeks of October. Send the message, right? You're serious. You're a hardcore street baller. You may be out here by yourself, but you are trying to better yourself despite the fact that it's 50 degrees. You're still putting in work. You're still trying to get better, and because of that, come next spring, the fact that you've been out here for the last few weeks by yourself when no one else has, you're giving yourself a leg up come next spring because of the work you're putting in right now. And it does count, and it does help, and it does matter. Don't let that thought escape you. It's not that, oh, it doesn't matter because it's the last few weeks, who cares? No, it does matter, and it will matter, but you have to put in the work. Make your plan, carry that into the spring. It was a weird season, guys, but it's not over yet. Your work is not done. So use this time, use this month, use these weeks of weird weather to get in your last few workouts in out here. Start evaluating yourself, start planning from that evaluation. Where do you want to be? What do you want to do? You have about 4 or 5 months to go through that process. What do you want out of it? It's very important. If you guys like this video, please hit that like button. If you guys could do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, that would be great. And hit that notification bell so that you're notified of all my future videos coming up, going into this period of fall and then into, unfortunately, winter. You know what I like about this channel? What I like is that we talk about stuff that isn't talked about anywhere else on YouTube, let alone the internet. And you could take the fatalist approach and say, well, you know, no one's looking for this kind of content. Boulder Dash. I don't even use that word. I hardly know what it means, but I do know that if you build it, they will come. I do believe that. I don't think that I'm the only person that enjoys this kind of stuff, this kind of information. I find it very interesting. And if I find it interesting, I think there's got to be an audience for everything. So, that being said, go ahead and share this channel. Share these videos. Let people know that content like this exists. That being said, thank you guys again for watching, and I will see you next week.
Yeah, I'm at my prime. Hey, hey, I'm at my prime. Whoa, said I'm at my prime.